Hello, I'm Helene Dudley, co-founder and executive director of TCP Global Microloan Program. I'd like to tell you about a very exciting and productive trip that we made to Africa earlier this year to visit our microloan sites. So everyone has a dream, including TCP Global, but there's a lot of behind the scenes drama involved in achieving those dreams. When I set off for Africa in January, I had an agenda. I wanted to lay the groundwork for a possible Rotary Global grant and also to get stories, videos, and photos to help us motivate our donors. However, when I got to Uganda, I found that our partners had a different agenda. And their agenda is no less valid than ours. They wanted to celebrate the improvements TCP Global had brought to their lives and show their deep appreciation. Every entrance and exit, and in the middle of the program as well, there would be singing, dancing, and chanting. And it was beautiful, but it also took a lot of time, so that I often didn't have enough time to get the stories and visit all of the businesses that I wanted to visit. But it was hard to put an end to this kind of enthusiasm, and I love their messages. So these are women who, as soon as they have enough money to feed their kids and to keep their kids in school, they feel like they have left poverty behind. And now they're working on helping other people who are less fortunate than them. So they have a great spirit. So I realized when I was in Uganda that it slowly dawned on me that there was very little entertainment in Yumbe. I saw a couple of soccer fields, but that was about it. Our visit was kind of like the circus coming to the town. The kids were following us everywhere we went. They were mesmerized. They would stand by the side of the tent for 2 or 3 hours during our long meetings with all of the speeches, etc. And my family had a third agenda. They wanted to stop me from going altogether. They feared that I would get COVID, that I'd get kidnapped, that I'd get myself in some kind of a mess, and my sons would have to fly to Africa to rescue me. So I stocked up on shots and meds. I got trip insurance, bought a new phone with an international plan so I could, in theory, stay in touch, promised to never travel alone or call attention to myself or be in large crowds. And as an extra assurance, I told them that Dr. Brian was going with us on the 11-hour trip from Kampala to Yumbe, which I really believe was true at the time I said that to them. But it all quickly became unraveled. When I landed in Nairobi just after midnight, my unlucky I-13 phone proved unreliable, making it difficult to connect with Ebby and her sister, who were at Terminal 1 while I was at Terminal 3. Eventually, it got worked out. 3 others in our party were to meet us the next morning to visit microloan programs in Kenya. Chris, the leader of that group, is a member of the Rotary E-Wash Club and director for Africa programs for TCP Global, and he's a former Peace Corps volunteer and well-traveled, and he was taking good care of himself. But one of his travel companions made a poor food choice, got violently ill, and returned to the States. Unfortunately, it was his friend who was going to be accompanying me on my 11-hour solo journey back to Kampala to get my plane at the end of my trip. So all of a sudden, I didn't have anyone to make that trip back with me. So things were not going to plan, but we had 2 great days in Kenya. So we visited Ebby's family in Maliki, and here's where we were having breakfast. We were very well taken care of, very gracious and wonderful people to visit with. And then we also, the next night, we also stayed in the village. We went to Karongo, where we met with 2 microloan groups, the Vigulu and the Perez groups, and they gave me the first of many beautiful Africa dresses. I have to lose a little bit of weight before I can comfortably wear this one, but it certainly is lovely. And this is one of my favorite spots. This is in Etta's backyard. She's a member of the Vigulu loan group. And the ladies meet for tea, I think almost every day under this beautiful little bougainvillea arbor. And they exchange stories and friendship. And Yeah, so it's a beautiful memory. And so village life doesn't have a lot of amenities, but there is an enticing, tranquil gentility about it. So as it turned out, Dr. Bryan's driver took us north, but without Dr. Bryan. Several hours into that drive, I got my negative COVID results from the Uganda airport tests, but Chris's email said in all capital letters, "Don't panic." It said he tested positive and he should isolate for 5 days. So there were 5 of us in the car at the time, and we all agreed not to dump Chris along the side of the road, but we stopped sharing food with him. So already there was a lot that I was not writing home to my family about. I was also soon to learn that my $1,000 in cash was useless, as were my credit cards. Only new bills of 50 and up were negotiable in Uganda. My 2006 series $100 bills were worthless, as was my wad of 20s. Eventually, I had to borrow cash from a member of parliament and pay her back in Kampala. So when we arrived in Yumbe, most of the 900 borrowers were gathered to meet us, singing, dancing, smiling, chanting, with minimal attempts at social distancing. Chris always stayed at the periphery outside, but pretty much everything else I had promised my family was out the window. So there was a brass band to call attention to our visit. And when we visited the district government offices, we were accompanied by a honking motorcycle escort. That first afternoon, I met under the mango tree with members of the Provisional Rotary Club of Yumbe. They told me their stories, and we were joined by the woman member of parliament, or MP, representing Yumbe, who said she made that long trip specifically to learn more about TCP Global. She joined us for several site visits over the next week, and I got up the courage to inquire if there was room in her van when she traveled back to Kampala on Saturday. She said she was thrilled to have extra time with me, so we made good use of that time, and we continue to work together, a prime example of an opportunity disguised as a problem. So the Uganda trip identified 3 golden opportunities that may not have come to light if I had listened to my family and not made the trip. That trip established the relationships necessary to realize those 3 opportunities, hopefully. 1, nationwide replication of the TCP global model by the Uganda government. 2nd, officially engaging Peace Corps volunteers in implementing our program. And 3, becoming a poster child for partnering for peace. So the TCP Global team is proud of our track record in empowering marginalized women. And that is not just our assessment, though the women themselves say that they're empowered. The representatives of the government and other locals talk about how empowered the women are. And our goal is to get our model replicated in as many marginalized communities as possible, whether implemented by us or by some other entity. So during the 4 to 7 hour meetings and celebrations I attended, I repeatedly heard mention of a future government program to economically empower rural Ugandans. And I love to see all these women with the microphones talking about how their futures have improved and what else they wanted for Uganda. This woman on the left was talking about fighting corruption. Others were talking about the strides that their families were going to make. So during my trip with the MP back to Kampala, I learned the details from Abako, the MP, who is now working with another ministry of parliament, learned the details of the government program that hopefully will get our model adopted nationwide. So the way we work is we work through existing women's village savings and loan associations that have 3 elected leaders, and they operate with full transparency. They've also already been managing loan programs from their own funds for a full year before they joined TCP Global. And because of this screening process, they've had 100% repayment rate for the last 18 months. And our borrowers have progressed from selling on mats in the hot sun on the street to working in the relative comfort of the covered market. They tell us the increased earnings have helped them to pay school fees, which they had been struggling to do in the past. It also means their children no longer go to bed hungry. Most surprisingly, they said that domestic violence had virtually disappeared now that the women are no longer constantly asking their husbands for money for school and for food. So we had plenty of personal stories and data to entice the Ugandan government to use our model. If this works out, the government could use the TCP Global loan tracking software, and our team will mentor them. But they would use their funds, and they would likely be totally separate from us, perhaps with some basic modifications. And that's fine. We don't need all of these programs to be run by us. We just see that our model really helps to empower women. It makes a difference. So we would like our model to be used as broadly as possible. The big hurdle I see is that TCP Global is built on trust. And this is a hurdle for government programs anywhere, including in Uganda. Another way to get our model implemented more broadly is through Peace Corps, which places volunteers in the types of small, underserved communities where our model works best. It will place a Peace Corps volunteer at the end of the summer to work with another TCP Global partner called Fitch, which is in Oyam in Uganda. 3 people from Fitch made the 8-hour trek to meet us in Yumbe. We learned during that visit that the leader of Fitch is a Peace Corps trainer, and he later introduced us to the appropriate Peace Corps staff who have now tentatively agreed to include TCP Global in their training program for new volunteers arriving this summer. Using this as a pilot, we hope to open the door to working with Peace Corps around the world. This leads to the third opportunity, partnering for peace. In 2014, Peace Corps and Rotary signed a memorandum of understanding to collaborate on projects to promote development in underserved communities. For clubs that do not qualify for Rotary grants for whatever reason, a great way to have an international project would be to support a TCP Global microloan program. But with or without Peace Corps involvement, our program, our expansion in Uganda promotes Rotary international collaboration by engaging return Peace Corps volunteers and Rotarians as we are doing in Yumbe. This is good for both organizations and good for the developing world. Both organizations do great work and have complementary strengths that will result in more effective development programs the more we work together. So this is the new Rotary Club of Yumbe, formed by 22 leaders of these village savings and loan associations in the Yumbe district. They're still provisional, but they've been told they'll receive their charter in April or May, and they're already doing wonderful community projects and reaching out to help the less fortunate in their communities. They are really an inspiration. So what is the deal with a Rotary grant? That was the whole reason I went to Uganda, and one of the main reasons to try to lay the groundwork for that. So last year we sent $368,000 to 140 partners who loaned out over $1 million, 3 times the amount we lent. This year we will need even more, and so far we've only identified about 135,000 in donations. We thought we could finally qualify for a Rotary grant because for the first time we can accurately predict where funds could be spent 9 to 12 months in advance, and we have strong Rotary involvement in the form of that Rotary Club and a partner in Arua nearby. So we have strong Rotary involvement on site and a great track record of success. And that a Rotary grant of $75,000 or $80,000 would plug a significant hole in that funding gap we have for this year. But it appears that a global grant is not a possibility because Rotary is firm on its requirement that microloan funds be managed by a registered microfinance institution. Our borrowers tell us that at the rate the MFIs charge them in Yumbe, which is over 10% per month, they were working for the MFI rather than for their families. With TCP Global loans of less than 1% per month interest, they are able to really get ahead. So until Rotary recognizes that MFI terms are unfavorable for small loans in remote communities and loosens that requirement, global grants will not work for TCP Global loans. MFIs may have favorable terms for larger borrowers in populated areas where they don't have to charge as much to service the loans, but that is not the case in most communities where TCP Global loans work. So we are hoping we can still get support from Rotary clubs who do not typically do global grants and who might be enticed by the prospect of having their donations matched annually by repayments in the field. We will miss out on the 100% match from Rotary District 6990 and the 80% match from Rotary International. So we will just have to work harder to get more donations from clubs and individuals. We want to give those hardworking ladies in Yumbe something to celebrate about again next year.